Hey guys, it's me, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Welcome back to another episode of Vertical Momentum. VM Nation, this is going to be an amazing conversation. They say don't ever meet your heroes. Well, this gentleman is one of my heroes. He's one of my mentors. And without him, there would be no me. He helped me start this whole thing, so it's his fault. So Sean Douglas is going to talk to us about podcasting. We're going to be talking about public speaking. We're going to be talking about trucking. We're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff. So you guys hold on. Make sure you get a pen and paper because you're going to want to definitely write some stuff down. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. We're being sponsored today by Vertical Momentum Coffee. It's a pre-workout coffee, twice as much caffeine of anything else you've ever had. So if you love coffee and pre-workouts, pick out Vertical Momentum Coffee. 22% of the proceeds go to help Project Die Hard and Brian Gibson. So we're always paying it forward. And also Kurt Balish at Balish Woodworks. Guys, if you love woodworking, you need to have a Kurt Balish signature piece in your house or your office. All right, guys, like I said, we're going to have some fun talking about podcasting. We're going to talk about public speaking, writing a book, trucking, all kinds of stuff. Sean, my brother, what's going on?
What's up, buddy? It's always a good day. I get to talk to you.
You know, this is the third time I've actually had you on my show, one of my shows.
Huh. Right on.
So how are you doing today? I mean, you're busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
Hey, man, I'm busy. Yeah, for sure. I'm busy. I'm fully retired from the Air Force now, so it's been a few months since then. I retired December 1st, officially relieved of duty, and officially retired December 1st of 2021. So these 4 months have been exciting. It's been real exciting.
So what is it like, because especially if you spend 20 years in the military, you have such a regimented schedule. What is it like when that day you don't have that regimented schedule?
I still have a regimented schedule.
I mean, you still wake up, do PT and all that?
Oh, yeah, no, I ain't doing that. I ain't got time for that. Nah, man. So most people that are getting out of the military, not retired, are pissed off at the military. They're like, oh, F this place. I'm out. Screw this. Doesn't matter how many years you got in. Some people, a very small percentage of people are like, you know what? I loved my time in the military. Love everything about it, but I think it's time to go. Like, very little people do that. Those are the retirees. The retirees are like, I love my time, but you know what? It's time for me to go. Yeah, I've had my fun. Most of the people that are getting out of the military, not medically, but just separating, just literally are like, I'm pissed off. I don't want to be in the military. Screw this place. I'm out. And that's their mentality going out. And so you still need to keep a regimented schedule. You don't just get out of the military and then lose everything you've ever been taught. We were taught core values. We were taught structure. We were taught discipline. We were taught motivation. We were taught skills. Use them. Use the positives that were taught to you. So I still have a regimented schedule. Number one rule of success, schedule everything. Number one rule of success.
I live by my scheduler. So if it's not on my schedule, I don't know.
If it's not on my calendar of things to do today, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So I have to make sure that Calendly or Schedule Once or Acuity or anything that you use, I use Calendly.
Me too. Yeah.
If it's in my schedule like this, then it's done. I have to make sure that I plug it in because sometimes you'll post something or schedule something and it'll say add to calendar, but you don't add it. It's scheduled. It's not integrating with Google Calendar. You have to schedule your own stuff. What are you doing from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., from 9 to 10, 10 to 11? Like every hour is scheduled. Everybody's like, how do you get so much stuff done? I built 4 businesses while serving in the military. 3 of them went to multiple 6 figures. The highest one was $650K a year. The 4th one's going to get there. How do I do that? By scheduling everything. schedule everything. Everything that you do leads to something. Schedule everything.
And I love that. Now, first question I wanted to ask, because obviously podcaster extraordinaire. Now you're helping other podcasters get their shows out there. Yep. Public speaking, you're a TED Talk. You've done TED Talks. You've been everywhere. So what are some of the myths that people think about public speaking and podcasting?
In anything, number one myth is if you build it, they will come. That's not true. It's not going to happen. You have to market. You have to market. I would say the biggest myth in podcasting is downloads. Downloads do not equal listens. Certain platforms like Apple Podcast, you can go and log into your Apple, and if you subscribe to certain shows, it'll start downloading. I've got a bunch of downloaded shows on Apple that I've never even listened to. A bunch of episodes. I usually listen to my podcast on Google Podcasts. That's where I choose to listen. I don't have a Spotify. My wife does. I don't have a Spotify. Sometimes I'll listen to podcasts on Amazon Music because they started integrating that, and that's where all my music is at. So I'll listen to podcasts on there. But downloads do not equal listens. If you go to Google Podcasts and push play, after the first 5 minutes, it counts as a download. But on Apple, it does not. On Spotify, you can listen to all of the podcasts without even downloading it. You just push play and it's good. They didn't download the episode. They just listened to it. So downloads and listens get kind of confused. That's not the number that you want to look at. The number in podcasting that you want to look at are like impactful plays. So like Blueberry has a metric now. If you host with Blueberry, they have a metric that says impactful plays, which means they listened to a bulk of the show. Your database, your subscribers, your listeners, whoever listened to a bulk of the show. That means that people are actually listening, because somebody might listen to like a minute or two of the show and go, nope, not for me, and then move on. So don't get it confused. Downloads do not equal listens. Impactful plays, or the amount of people that you talk to about your show, or you can look at your ratings and reviews and things like that. In speaking, the biggest myth is I can speak to everybody. If you speak to everyone, you hit no one. You must niche down. You must be very, very specific, and you must be clear on the problem that you solve.
We can go so deep on both of those subjects, but let's talk a little bit. While you're in the military, I think we've been friends probably almost 5 years now, or more.
Yeah,
or maybe even more. But you had the entrepreneurial itch even back then. So talk to us a little bit about being in the military, but also having an entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah, 2004. I was in England. Well, from 2002 to 2004, I was stationed at RAF Lakenheath in England. And the clubs over there are, oh my God. I mean, 19, 20 years old. You can drink. You're in a club. And there's, happy hardcore, house music, techno, all various forms. Glow stick. I mean, it is a party, man. They party over there in Europe. And I'm like, I want to be a part of this scene. I want to be like, this is so cool. And I've always loved various forms of music. So I became a DJ. And then in 2004, I was DJing at the Enlisted Club on base. And then I got booked for a party. Then I got booked for a wedding. And I'm like, oh, so I was charging like $25 an hour to DJ. And then I got booked for other things. And so in 2004, 2005, I was stateside getting booked for all this stuff. And I couldn't fulfill some of the things like, oh, I got this date. I'm already booked. But I know somebody else who could. And so me and another DJ partnered. Then we brought on a third and a fourth. And then we created Fresh Entertainment. So Fresh Entertainment was an entertainment company. We produced conferences, events. We were the AV audio guys. We were doing conferences, events, weddings, graduation parties, high school dances, bars and clubs on the weekends. We were booked probably, I'd say 48 weeks out of the year. We were booked. And that got up in 2008, that got up to 650K. That was crazy. My first ever business got up to 650K.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we were doing everything. I mean, we were basically the event planners for like weddings. Like, what is your reception going to be? And what about this? What about, we were going to start doing catering. We were going to be a one-stop shop. If you want this certain package, whatever. But I was on a really bad deployment in 2007 and it derailed my life. I was in a really bad deployment in 2007 where like people don't come home, and then started drinking. And I got married that year too. Started drinking. And then 2008, my wife and I filed for divorce. That was the year that I tried to take my life, and I got removed from the business. They bought out my share and I lost everything. I lost the business. I lost everything. And then the military was like, yeah, you have a drinking problem. You have a behavior problem. You're just a liability. So we're going to kick you out too. And they were getting ready to kick me out. But some people stuck up for me and was like, well, he's going through a really hard time and, whatever. So they got me the help that I really needed through talking to chaplains, mental health, office on base, or whatever it's called now. Life skills. It used to be called life skills. Now I think it's just mental health. But I needed to talk to people because I wasn't talking. I had never talked to anybody about anything. I'm always, hey, how's it going? I'm great. And I just bury everything because that's how I was taught. I was raised as a kid like men don't cry. Yeah. Like be strong, men don't cry. That's how I was raised. We don't talk about our feelings. Barely would say like I love you. Barely show any love and affection or what. Like that's just not how I was raised.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was a crazy time.
So like my T-shirt says, today I decide. We've had the mental health summit in last April. And I think the three most important words are in the English language are today I decide, because you don't have to be the same person when you go to bed tonight that you were that woke up that morning. So what were some of the steps that you took when you decided, I don't want this anymore? This ain't working.
Depends on the context of the question. So if you say this isn't working, I don't want this anymore. I looked at my life and the ashes, like the literal ashes. Like in 2007, my house burned down because St. Patrick's Day, I had a huge party with over 100 people and my house burned down. So then that moved into, with my wife and just the whole escalation of all of my problems. But I looked at the literal ashes around me and was like, I'm so done with this life. Like I'm so done. And that moved me to suicide. When I looked at what I had and who I was trying to become, I was living a rock star lifestyle. I was the ultimate imposter. So I'm in a bar or club or whatever. I'm looking successful. I'm looking hot with my suit and my rings. And like, I'm living the dream. Everybody looks at me and goes, man, that guy's got it together. But what they don't know is that I'm probably drunk when talking to them, like day drinker, functioning drinker, and I am at the house at night wondering why my life sucks so bad. All I saw were negatives. That's all I ever saw were negatives. And then a bright spot would happen and it would be taken away somehow. Somehow it would be taken away. I always felt like I had to struggle for everything. This guy over here can touch something and it miraculously turns to gold or $1 million. I choose the same path and I have to struggle to make $1,000. Why is this guy I'm launching this thing and it's $1 million business, automatically $1 million business. But I do the same thing and it tanks, or it doesn't do as well, or any number of things. I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like life sucks. It's too hard. I don't want to do this. Like, that's literally what my conversation in my head was. Like, nobody wants me around anyways. And I was trying to buy people's affection. Like, everybody gets a shot. Let's go. When when you're at the bar, let's buy a bunch of drinks for people. I'm trying to buy their affection, trying to buy their respect. And when I didn't get it, it would drive me down into deeper depression.
So now, we're not going to go into details about the attempted suicide, but what was because I know you're a man of faith, like I am, So, I mean, what was your come to Jesus moment where you're like, all right, I'm changing now. Either I live or I die. There's no two ways about it. So what was that moment?
Yeah. I was raised Roman Catholic. Talking to chaplains in the military was not what I expected. I was thinking there's this old guy, because like all these Catholic priests are like super old, but it was like a regular guy, 30s, 40s, whatever. It was like regular dude. And we would have debates. And I was so anti-God at the time. 2008 was my like anti-God year. But we were having debates and we were having conversations. And I would say something like, well, I don't believe in this and this and this. And then he would say, that's okay. You don't have to. But the scripture says that, whatever. I was like, no, scripture contradicts itself by saying that. And we were like, literally, he was surprised at how much biblical scripture I knew and how many stories and how many people, like, he was so surprised. And I looked forward to having those moments. So one of our sessions, I just basically told him, was like, I feel like I'm lost. I want these certain things. And then he pulls out the Jeremiah 29:11 scripture. And that was my moment. I don't think I've ever heard that, or maybe I heard it in passing, but in that moment when I heard, for I know the plans I have for you, not to harm, but to prosper. It was like tingles and shivers, and I felt the heat come over my body. And I'm like, well, what is his plan? And then we had a whole conversation about what his plan was. And what is it? 12 years later, 10 years later, something like that. Was it like 14 years later, whatever, 14 years later? I now can look back from now until 2008 or 7 or 6 or even before, I see the plan.
Okay, so now, like, everybody knows my story, knows I got thrown out of the military the first time for being an addict, got back in, was about to be thrown out a second time just for being an asshole. Right, my French. But because of 9/11, it changed my whole life and perspective.
Yeah.
But when I went to drill that weekend, I had to look at, because I got busted from E4 to E nothing again. But at this time, I decided, what are the winners doing? What are the successful soldiers doing? Not what the E4s and E5s are doing. What are the E8s, E9s, and above doing? And that's when I started realizing that success leaves clues. So what about you? What was it like when now all of a sudden, you're like, all right, I wasn't the best, soldier, but now I'm going to start putting my nose to the grindstone to be the best. What steps did you take?
Yeah. So my mom knew everything that was going on, and she sent me a book by Norman Vincent Peale called The Power of Positivity. Yeah. Oh man, that book changed my life. That was the first ever personal development book that I've ever read. The first ever. That book changed my whole perspective, combined with talking to chaplains. So I stopped drinking, stopped smoking. I didn't hang out with anybody. I was just me by myself. And 2009 was my turnaround year. It was almost a year or 2 years, 2007, 2008 into 2009 was just hellacious as hell. But in early February-ish, March of 2009, man, that was it. Started turning it around. The Power of Positivity. I read that book in like a couple days, 2-3 days. Started putting things into practice. Started seeing the blessings around me. Other people were like, oh, you quit smoking? Like, how'd you do it? I'm like, oh, this is how you do it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll try this. I'll work with you. Like we'll do it together. And then other people started like, well, what did you do for this, man? I really want to stop drinking. I'm like, well, here's what I did. And here's what you can do. And I started helping people, and I felt amazing. Oh my gosh, I felt amazing. And then I told them my story, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I know other people who were going through the same thing. I'm like, well, let's talk about it. And slowly, it started becoming like a movement. And then I read a John Maxwell book, and a leadership book that was even like, holy crap. So if you ever get a chance, you need to read 3 books by John Maxwell. They are The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and Failing Forward. Those 3 books will change your life. Everybody's like, oh, you got to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Think and Grow Rich. And yeah, okay, whatever. Those 3 books alone, Failing Forward, Laws of Leadership, and Laws of Growth, that will change your entire life in ways you cannot imagine.
And one thing I've learned this from you, basically, and one of my favorite quotes is from Oprah Winfrey. Says the best way to help ourselves is by helping others.
Yes,
that's the main gist of our show. So now, when you got back into entrepreneurship, this time you did not get into the trappings
right?
Of success, because you knew what the downfalls were. So talk to us about dipping your toe back into entrepreneurship, but knowing, listen, I can go back there. I don't want to go back there.
Right. So I became a drill instructor for basic training in 2009 and was there until 2013. That was my way to help people and motivate and mentor. And I met a guy who does like a lot of auctions, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So we go to a couple auctions. I love it. My wife and I are talking. We get back together. And then in 2010, I had started going to auctions and buying and selling and flipping. By 2011, we had a store in San Antonio, Texas called Vintage Dreams. And it was a buy, sell, trade store. And I was buying storage auctions. I was buying farmhouse auctions, government auctions, and anything I can get my hands on. If something's for sale, I'm going to see if there's an ROI to it. By 2013, we had the largest buy, sell, and trade, not like a pawn shop, but an actual store, like buy, sell, and trade in like Lower Texas. We're huge.
But then obviously you had to pivot again.
So we're running the store. We're crushing it. We're doing like $4,000 weekends. We're selling at flea markets. I mean, we're just crushing it. $4,000 weekends. We'd have a garage sale at our house and make $600 in a weekend at a garage sale. Like, I was just crushing it. It was freaking amazing. 2013, my time is up as a drill instructor, and I have to go from Texas to North Carolina, where I've been for the last 8 years. And we sold the store. We're like, who wants to buy our entire inventory, everything, our email lists, everything, all our advertising you own, not the brand. You got to rename it. You got to rename the store, but you own everything else, And so we sold it. We moved to North Carolina. And in that time between 2009 and 2013, the mindset shift alone that we had, that I was not a good husband in 2007 and 2008. And I was still working on it in 2013. But the mindset shift of a husband and father completely changed. I was always about, what can you do for me? But now it's, what can I do for you? Because that's going to serve me anyways. Like, when you serve with no expectations, you inexplicably and innocently gain something anyways. It's amazing how that works. When you give of yourself, inevitably something comes back to you. You never have to worry about it.
One thing, like, we're part of the Entrepreneur Tribe together. And that's one thing that Stephen always talks about, that when you live without expectation, you're still going to be blessed. Yep. But you don't have the stress of like having that, well, I'm doing this to get this. There's no stress level, because you're not really expecting anything, because the blessings are coming either way.
Right. And then it was an entrepreneurial mindset shift. I think that anybody can do anything to sell and make money, even if it's $5. You can go outside right now, have your kids do a lemonade stand, and that would be like a business, right? You're doing something. The shift comes where you don't have to give 1,000% all the time to the business, because then become slave to the business. I slaved over that entertainment company. But I also knew that I couldn't do it alone. So I had to hire people. But at the same time, with success comes issues and problems. One time we were going to get sued, but we didn't have like a lawyer. We didn't have like some kind of like legal documents or whatever that we needed. I'm like, this is what are you talking about? Like, you just don't know things. But the shift comes where it's a passion to do it, and making money is a blessing. That's why I do business. I do it because I love it. Not because I want to be a millionaire and have tons of money and houses and cars. That was my first business. I did it to become a rock star. I did it so that I would look good. I did it because I wanted the badass cars and the houses and the fame and the women and everything that come along with it. I wanted to be famous. That's the only reason I did it. Now, I don't worry about that. I just want to help people, and it's a passion, and money is a byproduct of that passion. That's the biggest shift. Money is the byproduct of the passion that you give.
And I love that. Two of my friends, actually, Christopher Celeste and Liam Weisner, they own a group called Operation Veteran Freedom. They actually taught me for the last 12 weeks about having your products that are evergreen. Yep. And I didn't really believe in it until my father passed away, Valentine's Day. And I was away from my house for 3 weeks. But as I'm sleeping over there, not working, I'm still getting paid. I'm still getting money. So I think a lot of people don't realize, it's when you have a podcast, when you have books, courses, that money you create it one time, and then you just market that shit out of it, right. And the money can keep coming in. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like your book changed my life. I still have it. It's one of my 3 books that's on my phone at all times. I go back to it, and I still wear the Live Your Brand shirt. It's still comfortable, the most comfortable shirt I own. So
heck yeah.
So talk a little bit about about that and stuff you started doing.
Oh yeah. So 2014-15 became a master resilience trainer for the Air Force. Started public speaking professionally because I was already speaking at high schools and colleges, and I was giving resilience seminars. Like, I've been speaking since 2009, but paid gigs 2016. And I knew that I had to come out with a product, like Entrepreneurial 101, right? You got to come up with a product or a service or a program or something. Can't always rely on speaking. And that's what I want. I was like, I'll just rely on speaking and that'll just pay the bills, whatever. Well, when you're not speaking, you're not getting paid. So then I came out with guides. I didn't come out with a course like a traditional, it was more like masterclass. Like, I was doing masterclasses in 2016, 17, 18. I would just do like a Facebook Live and just give it like a masterclass. I would record me doing something and then upload that to YouTube, whatever. Like that was like the start of like the e-course, right? But the guides that you create, I mean, I don't have to really do anything, and the guides sell. Yeah. You got to market it, but if you're running ads like that, it really doesn't matter. You can set your monthly budget for Facebook or Google segmentation, pre-roll video ads, or Instagram story ads, TikTok. You can set these monthly budgets. I don't want to spend any more than this dollar amount. Mm-hmm. If you start to go over the dollar amount, it turns the ads off. And then once the bill gets paid or whatever, the ads go back on. And you just keep doing that. You just keep running monthly ads. What do you want to comfortably spend in marketing and advertising budget? Google AdWords are kind of expensive. Facebook ads are getting really expensive. Yeah. Really expensive. What's not expensive are podcast ads. Podcast ads.
And I'm releasing an interview I did with our friend Dennis Yu tomorrow.
Oh, love him. Dennis
is he's badass, and he has something he calls the $1 a day method, to where you can actually boost your post for $1 a day, and you're going to see massive engagement for only spending $1 a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I upped it to $3.
Okay.
I do $3 a day for 5 days.
So if you go to Starbucks once a week, there's your ads for the whole month.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your book, one thing I loved about your book, it was so easy. A guy like me can just follow. It was like an SOP. You actually give the points where you can actually just click and get paid to speak. So talk about that, because it wasn't really a guide. It was just, it's an SOP.
Yeah. I mean, remember what I said earlier. Entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, find a hole in the market. They find a problem and they solve it. That's all they do. They find a hole in the market and they solve it. The number one question that was always asked in Facebook groups, live events, people that I'm talking to, where do I find speaking gigs? Like, where do I find leads? Or how do I get booked to speak? Or, I mean, that's the number one question. How do I get booked? Or where do I find the events? Or how do I know where to look? So I wrote a guide called the No BS, No Fluff Guide to Getting Booked to Speak. And there was a guy that I was working with, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I speak, and I mean, I don't know. I haven't really gotten paid yet. So I'm kind of new. I'm like, if you're speaking, you should be getting paid. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, look, here's my guide. Check it out. So he gets the guide. And like a month later, he sends me a picture of him holding a $1,000 check. He said, I got my first paid gig by using my guide. First paid gig.
A lot of speakers get suckered in because you'll hear these, oh, we're going to invite you to speak, but you got to pay to speak. You got to pay to play. And a lot of people get suckered into that, and they're realizing, and they get their, ass handed to them. And then they're like, wait a minute, I just lost $5,000 and I don't know what to do now. So talk about that, not to do those pay to play things.
So, my stance on this, man. If I'm getting paid, I'm speaking, right? Like if I'm speaking, I'm getting paid. If I'm paid, it's because I'm speaking, right? I don't do pay to plays. That's just not me. Some people are those type of speakers, and we know who they are. They love the pay to play. I'm like that. I mean, that's great. I can make a ton of money speaking, and they're like, well, I can make a ton of money selling. My philosophy is, if I'm speaking somewhere, I'm getting paid to speak there. Then I go home. Those pay to play speakers pay to speak, sell a bunch of stuff, then go home and have to work on fulfilling the stuff that they sold. I get paid to speak, and then I go home. I don't have to do anything else. Right? I've paid $2,500 to speak somewhere, that pay to play stuff. I've paid $2,500 and walked out of there with almost $50,000 because I sold a bunch of stuff. And then I went home, drove myself freaking crazy. My team is like, holy crap, we need more people. And like, I sold a bunch. I mean, $50,000 was great, but then I had to go home and I've paid $5,000 to speak somewhere and got $0 at the event. And it was like, oh, we're going to have over 100 people. There's maybe 30 people there. Tops, maybe 30 people. And they promised me over 100. And I paid $5,000 to keynote that event and got $0 in return. I didn't even get a speaking gig out of that event. I got nothing. I walked on stage. Nobody in the audience was going to book me. I've never been booked for that event again. I mean, literally, I wasted the $5,000 to go speak somewhere with nothing in return. I got some cool video from it, but you know what I mean? I know people who paid $10,000 and gotten $100,000. I know people who paid $10,000 and got $0. So I'm not a fan of the pay to play model at all, but it has its place. It does. It has its place. If the right event came up, let's say 10X. If Grant Cardone was like 10X, you can speak at 10X. I would pay $10,000 to speak at that event, because that's like John Travolta was there one time, and like Kevin Hart and like all that stuff. Like, oh yeah, like yeah, that is. I'm gonna pay the $10,000.
Yeah, that's kind of like, because then that's like being on Oprah's show. Because once you know you're on Oprah's show, you're getting paid one way or another. But one thing I love about you is when you get paid to speak, you actually get there early. You go talk to the people in the audience. You become engaged. And I think a lot of people, when they think a public speaker, they don't realize you don't just go out there and talk. You have to engage with the audience. So give us some tips about speaking from the stage and getting there and getting in touch with the audience.
Oh, 100%. Before I even go, whether I'm the opening keynote, closing keynote, I love being the after lunch speaker. That's my favorite spot. Some people hate it. I freaking love it because everybody comes back to lunch. I got to get them all corralled in. That's like being a drill instructor, right? That's just like being in the military. Like, hey, everybody over here, let's go. Like that just it fuels me, man. Fuels me. I go out and talk to as many people as I can before the event even starts, especially if it's like come the day prior, because we're going to have a dinner for all of our attendees or a welcome party or whatever. Like I'm there, like, so what do you do? And what is going on with this? And how are you? And what do you do? And like, I want to talk to everybody because then we're going to have an amazing conversation. I've broken the ice with them already. I'm not a cold speaker. The next day when I get on stage, I can reference some of it because all I'm doing is gathering intel. Like, what are you struggling with? And what are you struggling with? And like, here's what I'm talking about. Like, what do you really want to know? And I'm really like, I'm having many little coaching sessions everywhere. When I go on stage, I say, hey, I met a lot of you last night. Amazing conversations. This was really great. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is, and I may have changed my whole entire talk based on what the audience wants to hear. That's networking. We're not like, oh, here's my business card. Here's your business card. Oh, yeah. Facebook. Like we're literally having conversations and then I'll email somebody right there. Like, hey, we should talk about this more. Like, yeah, let me email you. What's your email address? I'll email you right now. Here's a booking link. Book some time with me and we'll take a deep dive on this. Or we can do it tomorrow. Whatever, whenever you have time. But I'll send an email. Boop, done. Because I'm building those relationships. Speaking business is relationship building business. That's what it is.
And one thing, like I've took for the last 6 months, I've taken a deep dive into TED Talks. I think I've watched hundreds of them. I'm reading a book now called Talk Like TED.
Love that book.
And they talk about, how, sometimes that people in the audience may never remember your name, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
So talk about that, creating that, because like for me, like when I start my talks, whenever I speak, I'm like, listen, I'm not here for your wallet. I'm here for your heart. And it opens people up. So talk about that because there's some things people could say on stage that'll close it up right there. As soon as they say hi and try to make a bad joke or something, it could just shut you down.
Oh yeah.
So talk to us give us some public speaking tips.
Always start with a question. So Pete Vargas is a great dude. Love the guy to death. And he's like anti-questions. He's got the whole method about, and if you don't know who Pete Vargas is, go check out what Pete Vargas is doing. I've actually judged his speaker competitions. He has like a speaker competition like twice a year. And I've been a judge, and so is John Lee Dumas and a bunch of other podcasters and speakers have all been like judges for his speakers. But he's like anti that. Instead of asking a question, tell a story. That's how TED opens.
Yeah.
I come out because I want questions to open hearts and minds. Most speakers come out and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm so honored to speak. Thank you for the event planner. A little bit about me. I was raised in blah, blah, blah. And they go into this huge like origin story. Like nobody gives a crap. Honestly, nobody cares. They just want the information. That's all. You are a conduit for information that they paid to get. Nobody cares about where you're from or how many kids you have or like whatever in the first 5 minutes. If you want to throw that in like the 10 or 15 or 25 minute mark, great. Now you've got their attention. Now they're receptive. But for you to walk on stage and just spill out a bunch of stuff that doesn't like, it just doesn't matter. They don't trust you yet. In the first minute or less, you have to cultivate that know, like, and trust. So what I do is I say, let's say I'm at an event, a business event, and I say, who wakes up every day excited about their business? Raise your hand. And they'll say, okay, put them down. And then I put my hand down. Remember, I'm doing everything that I want them to do with my other hand. All right. Who here wakes up and is super stressed, worrying about clients, worrying about money? Like, I don't know where my next client's going to come from. And they're really struggling to hold on to this business. It's okay. You can raise your hand. I'm raising my hand. Who's right? Cool. Okay. Put them down. Now I raise my other hand. I say, who's not going to raise their hand no matter what I say? And then everybody laughs. Everybody giggles. A couple of people put their hands up. I'm like, cool. You put your hands up. All right. Awesome. Awesome. And then I go, my message for you today is, and then I go into my message. Then I go into my content. I tell a story, some more content. I tell a story. And then I'll say at the end of my talk, I'll say, I hope that this was enjoyable for you. I hope that you took away something from this talk. So as I close, which doesn't mean anything, but it gives the event planner hope that I'm almost done, because the event planner wants the speaker off the stage as fast as possible because they have other speakers coming, right? So I'll say, as I close, which doesn't mean anything, but it gives you hope and the event planner hope that I'm almost done. So they're like, like they start laughing, they're giggling, like you're opening them up. I'll say, remember what my message was. My message for you today is, and so I've gone full circle to my talk. I started with my message. I end with my message. Remember what my message was. My message is, and then whatever it is, I give no more detail. I give no more info. I give nothing else. I don't teach anything new. This is your close. I give my message, and then I'll give a call to action. I would love to have a conversation with any one of you in the audience. I'll be in the back right after this. Or if it's like we're going to lunch, I'll say, I'll be up here while everybody goes to lunch. I'll be up here for a little bit, and then I'll make my way to go get some lunch. But I'd love to have a conversation with you. I have an email address. Any one of you can email me. Would love to have a conversation with you about whatever my talk was, whatever. And then I say, thank you. And then I stand there for a second. And sometimes it's funny. You can get a standing ovation. If you don't get a standing ovation, like if one or two people are like really enthusiastic, I'll like put my hand out and I'm like, and I'll just give it to them, and I'm like, and it shows appreciation. And then I'll start clapping, and then I'll go like this, to like, I'll just go like this to everybody. And then all of a sudden they start standing up, and like, it's weird, man. It's weird, but it's just a great feeling.
I love it, and John Lee Dumas is one of my mentors. He's mentoring me. I have another mentor. We're working things out. His initials are RB, and he's got 3 amazing books out now. But I think a lot of things, like the guy I was talking about, he talks about how once you and your audience have a common enemy, whether it's mindset, whether it's, whatever it is, once they're on your side, they'll run through the wall for you. But if you don't have a commonality or find a common ground, when you're on that stage, it's going to be the longest 18 minutes of your life.
Oh yeah.
So now you got podcasting. So talk about, for the last 15, 20 minutes, talk to us about podcasting. They say that there's 2 million podcasts out there.
2.5.
Only half of them are active, and that if you go past,
so there's 2.5. There's 2.5 million podcasts, and there's about, I think the number has risen a bit. I think it's close to, if not over, I think 60% now of podcasts that have faded out. It used to be like 30%. 30% of your podcasts are not active anymore. But I think there's going to be a growing market for faded podcasts. I would love to. I would absolutely. I wish there was a podcast store. I wish I could go I wish there was a database somewhere And he would say, all these podcasts are dead. Which one do you want to buy? I'm like, I'll buy that one. And I'll buy that one. And I'll buy that. Like, I started Life Transformation Radio in 2017. Remember that show? I had you on that show.
Yeah.
Life Transformation Radio, top 1% podcast. It was like 1.5 for a while. Then it was like 1%. But it was a top 1% podcast. And it was a live online radio show that was repurposed into a podcast. And I sold it last year for 5 figures. I had my show for 475 episodes. So, yeah, man.
So, but they say that if you go past episode 13, you're like in the top 10%. Because, but a lot of people don't realize that podcasting, it's work. You have to get your guests, you have to do your marketing, your graphics, your descriptions and all that. Yep. A lot of people quit because they realize, wait a minute, this looks a lot like work.
Yep. Yeah. So my new show, I started right after I sold it, because it was a lot. I mean, hosting a live show, you got to be present. It was a lot of work. And I was like, I'm getting ready to retire from the military. I don't know where my life's going to go. I really think that it's time for me to step away from this part of the show. I really think that this is time for me to just go. And so I sold Life Transformation Radio, and it was amazing for a month. I mean, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have any emails. I mean, it was just, it was amazing. And then like a month later, I'm like, I miss it. And so I started another show, but this time it wasn't live. I was like, I'm not doing live. I mean, I'll do some Facebook lives, sometimes during like a recording, but create, launch, monetize podcast instantly, because of the last 4 or 5 years, what I've learned, instantly within the first 15 episodes became a top 3% podcast. And we were nominated for best podcast in education or news.
No, I have the question to ask you because, just in your title, the first 6 or 7 words, you have 3 keywords specifics right in the title, create, launch, monetize. And a lot of people, they'll just they'll put up a podcast and not even think about, having SEO keywords and stuff like that. Yep. And then wonder why they're not getting any traction.
Yep. I hate shows that are like the Richard Kaufman show. Like, who the what I'm saying? Like, who the are you?
Yep.
And there's a lot of people, like, I got a couple of friends that do. I'm like, dude, like, no, like, you're not the problem that's being solved. Like, your show, like, I love Vertical Momentum. Like, I love it. It's an empowering show. Freaking love it. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying Vertical Momentum with Richard Kaufman. Like that's great. But like, for like a no-name person to just have like, the first name, last name show. Like, what's the, like, nobody cares about you.
I had you on my old show, To Success Your Why Powers Your How. But, it did well.
Yeah.
But there was no way I could put that on a t-shirt.
You can't scale that.
I couldn't scale it anyway until I know, like, we're vertical.
We had to talk about this.
Because now I got my tumblers, I got my hats. We
had to talk about your title, didn't we?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, dude. Like, I mean, it's a great title, but like for a book, like,
but talk about, because like John Lee Dumas talks about in his books, The Uncommon Path, that, sometimes you have to go an inch wide, but a mile deep.
Yep.
When you're starting your show. So talk about that and how you help people find that.
Right. So I created Create, Launch, Monetize podcast, and it's done amazing. We got season 2 coming out this year. So we're doing it in seasons, like TV show, like seasons. We're not just going to do it 365. It'll be for 4 to 6 months or whatever. And then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and do another 4 to 6 months. And, and it's worked. Your show, unless it's like yours, but it's like an empowerment show, Vertical Momentum, like we're just telling stories, like it's great. If you have a specific, like a business show or whatever show, the problem you solve on the podcast needs to be in the title, period, the end. I help people create, launch, and monetize podcasts, businesses, books, speaking, coaching programs, product services, whatever. That's what we do. We teach people how to create, launch, and monetize it. Another podcast that I have coming out that is based off of our best-selling book is From No Worth to Self-Worth. And so we're going to teach people how to go from no worth, having no value, having no direction in life, to having a ton of self-worth. That's going to be our new show. And it's probably going to get turned into a TV show. We're talking with networks right now, but hopefully it gets turned into a TV show. But this title has to represent everything. It's the red thread. It's the through line. If you read that Talk Like TED, it talk about the red thread or the through line. It's the literal glue that holds your whole entire talk together. That through line, that red thread. If you yank that red thread out, everything falls apart. So you have to figure out what that red thread is. What is the through line? Yours is vertical momentum. How do we gain momentum, or how do you scale or grow as a person, as a business, whatever? I mean, you can look at it a couple different ways. How do I get to the mountaintop? How do I get to, right? What's the momentum I need to go this way and not this way, right? That's great. But there are shows, like you said, it's this show. I'm like, I have no idea what that show's about. And therefore, confused buyers don't buy. And therefore, if your title's confusing, no one's going to, like, what's that about? If they have to do any work to figure out anything about you, they're just not going to do it. So you have to be very clear, very concise on the problem that you solve. Then use your podcast, use your book, whatever, to market that problem, not the solution. Most, if not 99% of people on the planet have a solution that they market the crap out of that nobody cares about. They don't care. I've got this one solution that's going to do. Nobody cares because they may not have that problem. However, if your marketing is something like, hey, are you a really good creator? You can launch a couple things, but really suck at monetizing that creation. Hey, do you have a message or a passion for whatever it is? And you want to create the message, launch it into a book or a podcast or a show or a business, and then monetize that message. That's very different marketing than saying, hey guys, I have something very cool that will show you how to create, launch, and monetize your message so that you can get millions of dollars. And like, if you look at any of the marketing on social media, oh man, I was living in my car and my life sucked. And then I monetized my message and now I'm a millionaire. You could do the same thing for $49. By my God, like, they don't care. They're not living in their car, probably. Right? They've kind of figured out that Google can unlock your entire business, and watching YouTube videos can unlock your entire business. You don't necessarily have to have a coach or have to have that guide or have to have that course or have to have, you know what I mean? Like, watch some YouTube videos, learn some stuff, do some research. So marketing the problem, not the solution, you weed out the people who don't have that problem, number one. Number two, you bring in those people that really have that problem and really want to solve that problem. They don't care about your solution. They don't care about the solution. They care about solving that problem. That's all they care about. I have this problem. I need it solved. I don't care what it takes to solve it. I want it solved. Hey, do you want to make thousands of dollars speaking? Of course, everyone's going to say yes. Well, my guide will show you how to do that. Like, that's exacerbating a problem. Are you speaking, but speaking for free and wondering how to get paid engagements? Oh, I can show you how to do that too, right? Instead of saying, "Hey guys, my guide will show you how to get paid." Like, there's no problems are emotional because people buy with emotion and justify with logic.
Yep. You know, and I totally agree. But like, you know, like our friend Russell talks about is people that pay attention.
Yes.
You know, there's people that, hey, bro, you know, send me the book for free, and they're never going to act upon it.
Right.
But somebody says, you know, hey, you know, whatever the book, $50, if they're spending $50, pretty much they're going to put some work behind it.
Right.
So talk about that, people that pay attention. Talk about that.
100%. 100%, man. Nailed it. A lot of times people will say, well, if you want to become a serious business owner, you got to raise your prices. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time selling my $400 item as it is. If I raise it, no one will buy it. Wrong. It's so stupid. This logic is so stupid. I raised my prices. Of course, you're going to make more money if you keep the same amount of clients, but you reach another higher level of clientele. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my relationship with money sucks or whatever. Like, I'm not going to find the cheapest, item, whatever. I'm going to find one that's got a lot of great value. Whether it be a $5 book or a $5,000 course, whatever gives me great value and ROI, that's what I'm going to buy. But most people are like, oh, that only costs $200. I would just pay way more than that. So it must not be good. Like, that logic is so stupid to me. It was crazy. Like, I raised my prices and then all of a sudden I got a whole new batch of clients that were like amazing and followed through on everything. And they were just high level achievers. I'm like, this is so stupid. Like this,
but it is like,
so
I worked for GNC for 30 years, and we would have like a $70 pre-workout.
Yep.
And then we'd have a $20 pre-workout, and the $70 ones would sell out.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep. So stupid.
People are looking at it like, it can't be as good because it's cheaper than that one.
Yeah, right. Right. Oh, it's not good. It's cheap. Like, like, it's just, oh my gosh, man, that logic just kills me. Oh man, I don't understand. But whatever.
If you can give 3 tips to somebody that's going to start a podcast or a speaking business today in the world that we live in, social media, what would be your top 3 tips?
Number 1, category design. Live it, love it, know everything you can possible about category design. Second thing.
Wait, can you just pontificate on that a little bit?
Category design?
Yep.
Yeah, so category designers like myself, like Christopher Lochhead, has an amazing book called Play Bigger.
Yep.
It will change up your entire business. Christopher Lochhead is like the godfather of category design. Basically, category design is you creating a new market category that didn't exist before. So let's say podcast. You can name it audio. For example, in 1993, podcasting was called audio blogging. That's what it was called. And Compact Computer was the first ever audio blogger. In 2004, Apple comes out with the podcast, personal on demand. That's what pod stands for, personal on demand. Podcast, podcast or whatever. That's the iPod. Come up with an iPod, right? And they started saying, hey, podcast and like all that in 2004. Nobody cared. They put songs because that's how he was marketing it. I'm going to put 10,000 songs in your pocket. It was on the iPod, right? But they started talking about podcast, and you can like put your own audio and stream it. And like they were already talking about, nobody cared because they were focused on the music. I don't know anybody who's got an iPod. I don't know anybody.
Where it's sitting in my.
I have no idea who has an iPod past like 2016. After 2016, like I don't know anybody who has an iPod. But for those 10 years, from 2004 to 2014, iPods and music, and then I know people who are podcasting in 2010. Apple created a new market category. The iPod, podcast, personal on-demand audio. 2014, podcast blew up. Takes about 10 years for the market to realize that a market category has been built, been groomed, but category designers create a problem that only they can solve and then markets the problem, never the solution. They change the narrative and the conversations that people are having to one that directs their attention to that problem so that they can buy that solution.
Okay, so that's 3. What's the second one?
You need to be different. Be different. People buy different.
Yeah.
Be different. And if you want to launch a book, if you want to launch a podcast, if you want to become a speaker, you want to get booked at TedX, you want to create a business, you want to take your passion and market it, you want to take your message and market it, then hire me.
And I'm living proof that what you teach works. So
yeah,
if anybody wants to know living proof, I'm it. So what would be your number 1 tip?
Category design. Be a category designer. Why would I play in somebody else's backyard when I could charge people to play in mine?
You know, and I love that. And like one of the guys that I'm talking with, he's like, you know, now you got to create a pre-workout coffee. He says, because everybody, if you're in the military, remembers the coffee we would drink before you go outside the wire,
Sludge.
You know, and get all jacked up. And he's like, well, that now you created your own category.
Right.
You know?
Correct.
So now last question I have, last 2 questions, actually.
Okay.
How do we find you? How do we support your mission? How, if we want to be coached by you, or if we want to help you to help with our podcast, how do we find you?
Yeah, my website is The Success Core, CORPS, thesuccesscore.com. And it has all my social medias, all my videos, my TEDx talk, everything that I offer, the podcasts, has everything on there. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Instagram is at The Success Core. LinkedIn is me with The Success Core. Facebook, same thing. Go check out Create, Launch, Monetize podcast. It's all over every single podcast player, podcatcher. It's everywhere. So that's how you reach me. Or you can email me at Sean, SEAN, Sean at thesuccesscore.com. And let's have a conversation. If you really want to, maybe you already have a podcast and you're like, man, I need to market this thing because I have like 1,000 downloads and like 20 episodes. Like, oh, I can do that for you. We produce a couple podcasts that are award-winning podcasts, top 3% podcasts. We produce a few of those. We have our own shows. So yeah, if you're looking for podcast or books or speaking or anything, and you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. If we're not a fit, we're not a fit. I'm not offended.
Okay. Now, last question. This is a 2-part question.
Okay.
I had one of the Iron Chefs on, Simon John, and he said in the last 2 years, over 1,000 restaurants have closed. 100,000 restaurants has closed in the United States. So we have a lot of people that are driving Uber, DoorDash, just to put food on the table.
Yep.
And if we ask the average American to do something in 7 days, they're pretty much never going to get to it. But if somebody's listening to our show now and we ask them to take an actionable step in the next 24 hours, they're more likely to do it. So I have a 2-part question. If somebody is struggling in their business, what is something they can do in the next 24 hours to get some help? And second, and I think most of all, if somebody is struggling with their mental health, what is something they can do in the next 24 hours to get some help?
So the first part, what can they do in the next 24 hours, like in their business?
Yeah.
To get help. I mean, to get help, I mean, talk to me, talk to you, anybody, a coach or mentor, somebody, talk to somebody. But if they want to do it on their own, then you need to understand what's not going right. You need to fix what is not going right, but you have to identify what is not going right. If you don't have any leads coming in, then you have a prospecting problem. If you have no money coming in, then you have a sales problem. Most people who have a sales problem either can't close or are not selling correctly or to the right person. So like, well, I have a sales problem because I have a leads problem. Wrong. Have you done business before? Yes. Have you gone to your previous customers to see if they needed anything else? Or did you just sell to them one time and then gave them what they needed and went on to the next client? It actually costs less money to retarget your old customers than to bring in new ones. It costs less money because they already did business with you. So they automatically know, like, and trust you. So if I launched a podcast for somebody, I would go back to them and say, hey, see, your podcast is doing great. Have you thought about writing a book with your podcast title? They're like, oh yeah, I kind of cool. Let's do that. Now I have a repeat customer. So go back to the people who you have sold to before and ask them what else they need. What else are they looking for?
So isn't it really important to build your email list?
100%.
Because you don't really hear them people talk much about that. They're always
don't
talking
talk about that much anymore. We're not supposed to say those words.
You know?
Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that.
But it's like you
own
an
email list.
You know, you own your list. You know, you own it.
Yep.
And the last part, if somebody's struggling with their mental health, like both of us did, what is something they could do in the next 24 hours to get some help?
Want to get help?
Yeah.
Some people are embarrassed. Some people don't want to get help. They're like, no, I'm fine. Reach out. Tell somebody, I'm not okay. And you know, that's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's perfectly fine. Because a lot of people are not okay. But they just choose to put a smile on their face, shrug it off like water on a duck's back, and go about their life in a depressed, miserable state. It's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay there. That is not okay. So if you want to get help, there's the suicide prevention hotline. There's the veterans hotline. There's Facebook. Reach out to people, family, friends, whoever, like, call somebody and be like, this is what I'm dealing with. And I really don't like it. And I don't want to stay here. And it's getting worse. Nobody wants to be miserable. Most people have a mindset that this is the only state that they could ever be in because this is what they deserve. Somehow they think that they deserve it. You don't. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be something great. And you just need to find the right people in the right network that sees the greatness in you.
I love it. So guys, make sure you pick up that book. I mean, for me, it was a game changer. I've spoken on stages and virtual summits everywhere because of that book. So make sure you pick up that book. If you can become a friend of Sean's, because when he's in your life is a lot better.
Oh.
So, John, brother, I just want to say thank you. And because you're on here, I'm going to do something special for our audience. I'm actually going to give this away. I'm actually going to give this coffee away. So if somebody is interested in getting that coffee, write coffee below, and we're going to be giving this away on
snap.
a month. So,
hey, how are you going to give it away?
All they got to do is put the word coffee in it, and
Yep.
then they're going to enter it into a drawing, and somebody's going to buy it, and it's going to be delivered to their house with a written note from Third Day Coffee Seguin by Jose.
Okay. I have a whole strategy that you could do. I mean, yeah, the drawing would be great, but if you just did free plus shipping offers, you can increase your email list and increase revenue at the same time. So just do a free plus shipping. We'll pay the shipping. We'll give this away for free. However many bags. Because you're going to draw like what, one bag?
Yeah.
Okay.
One bag a day. We'll do.
Yeah. Yep. So what you could do, I don't know what your manufacturing process or your production process is, but you could do a free plus shipping offer. If you want this coffee for the next 5 days, we're going to give you a free bag, but you have to pay for shipping. So you set it up at a funnel.
Okay. Yep.
Set it up at a funnel, right?
Yep.
So they pay the shipping, that gets shipped to them. They automatically go onto your email list because they bought the coffee. And then your whole email list is segmented by everybody, coffee, podcast people. And they could be on all three lists. It doesn't matter. But the content that you deliver through that email list is segmented for them people. So if I bought a coffee, your free plus shipping offer, if I did the coffee, I'd be on your coffee list. And anytime you have updates or anytime you want to say hi once a week, whatever, you email those coffee people. And then if you have podcast content, whatever, you email those podcast people. If you have an overall message like, hey guys, it's been a great week. We got this coffee, we got this product, we got this podcast, we got this thing, and I'm speaking here, and it's like a newsletter. Your overall email list is your newsletter. Then it's segmented into many different content pieces, and you only email those people for that specific content because that's what they signed up for. You do a free plus shipping offer, they get into your email list, and you're shipping out their coffee. So you have their address. Now you can do direct mail marketing, thank you letters, figure out what their birthdays are, send them a birthday card, right? You're cultivating that relationship. You're cultivating the know, like, and trust, and you're shipping. I don't know where you would ship overseas or whatever, but you'd have to factor in whatever the shipping costs are.
Yeah.
Right. But you can make $1 to $2 on that shipping, which isn't much, but if 10 people buy it, that's $10. If 100 people buy the coffee, that's $100 because your cost shipping is, you're charging $1 over cost. So for every bag that gets shipped out, you made $1. And then 100 people get it, that's $100. If 1,000 people get it, that's $1,000. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I personally, I mean, a drawing's fine, but I would do a free plus shipping offer. You pay the shipping, we'll send it to you.
I love it. See, guys, this is why you need to talk to this man, because he's helping me out, and we're just sitting here talking. So I love you, brother.
I'm just saying, man, like, you pay for shipping, I'll send you the free coffee.
I love you.
Because
I love it so much.
People who pay what?
Pay attention. Yep. So, guys, thank you so much for hopping on. Remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is but up. And like Oprah Winfrey says, the only way we can help ourselves if we help others. All right, guys, I love you. I will catch you on the flip side. All right, Sean, take it easy, brother.
Thank you, brother.